Hello, in this video I'm going to be making some changes to my dust extraction system. I'm going to be fitting a new cyclone, testing it against my current cyclone, reorganising some things to create some more space in the workshop, and I'll also talk about what happened recently when one of the motors in my main extractor blew and needed to be repaired. So really it's a bit of a catch-all video. I set up this dust collection system a couple of years ago now, and I'll leave links to those videos in the description box below if you haven't seen them. CTS reached out to me a few weeks ago to see if I wanted to try out their new Thien baffle design cyclone, and originally I wasn't that interested, to be honest, mainly because the cyclone that I have set up at the moment, which is the Dust Commander HD, works great for me. But when I looked into it a bit more, I realised that there were some advantages to changing over to the CTS one. So let me talk about that first of all. 1. The new CTS cyclone has larger ports than the Dust Commander HD. These measure 64mm in diameter and are designed to fit the popular 63mm or 2.5 inch hoses and ducts. The ports on the Dust Commander HD only measure 50mm outside diameter. So that extra 8mm of diameter should give my extraction system better airflow, because basically the cyclone will be less of a bottleneck than my current setup, because as you can see the hose from the extractor is 100mm, and then beyond the cyclone it steps down to 68mm ducting to my machines. My extractor has twin motors and it's very powerful, so I think it can definitely handle the extra airflow, and it should be an overall improvement. 2. This new cyclone has a Thien baffle design. I'll be honest, I didn't know what that was, but I'm curious to find out how that affects the performance of my system. 3. The current collection bin that I'm using is very big, and that's not a problem in terms of the way that the system functions, but changing my cyclone gives me an opportunity to swap it over for something smaller, which is going to free up a significant amount of space in the workshop. 4. At a price point of around £50, this CTS cyclone is around half the cost of the Dust Commander HD that I'm using currently. Now, the Dust Commander HD is made of solid metal, whereas the CTS one is plastic. However, it's a really thick, durable and hard-wearing plastic, so I don't have any concerns around the durability of this one. 5. The CTS cyclone is more compact in height, measuring about 342mm, while the Dust Commander HD measures about 392mm. I'm generally a big fan of the products from CTS. Regular viewers will know that I've been using their Quick Click dust port adapters for years now, and I have them fitted to every tool that I own because they allow me to connect my tools to a regular dust hose quickly and easily. I'm also a CTS affiliate, so if you're interested in any of their products like their cyclone, their hoses or their Quick Click adapters, you can use the link in the description box below and use promo code RAG'n'BONE for 5% off all orders, and I will earn a small commission for any qualifying purchases. One other thing to mention is that the Thien baffle is actually removable, so you can decide whether to have it fitted to get better separation of particularly fine dust to stop it reaching your extractor, or you can take it out to get better airflow, and I'll be doing some experiments to test that shortly. And for those tests, I bought one of these anemometers to measure airflow. I'll leave a link to this one in the description box if you're interested in picking one up. They're pretty cheap and they work well. The first thing I'm going to do is test my current setup, and I'll use this blast gate here for testing, as it's basically the longest run of ducting from the extractor. And the reading was averaging around 11.6 meters per second. I'll get the old cyclone removed now, and for the purposes of testing the airflow, I'm going to first fit the CTS cyclone to the same dust collection bin first. And that's just to ensure that it's a fair comparison, and it'll also give me the opportunity to decide whether I want to use the new CTS cyclone or the old Dust Commander HD cyclone going forward. I can use the rubber gasket that came with the CTS cyclone to mark out the diameter of the hole that I need to cut, and I fitted a metal cutting blade in the jigsaw to cut the hole. And then I mark out the holes for the bolts and get them drilled so that I can get it bolted down. I ordered my new adapters from Dan at Custom Vac Adapters UK. Rather than messing around searching for the right sized adapters, these ones are 3D printed to your exact specifications, and they can also be tapered slightly to get the perfect fit. And Dan is really helpful and knowledgeable. I'll leave a link to his page in the description box below. but these come highly recommended, and Dan also kindly sent me one of his blast gates, which look really good, much better than the ones that you'll usually find available to buy commercially, which tend to be very loose and leak a lot of air. With everything set up again, I can test the new Cyclone with the baffle, and the airflow isn't quite as good, which isn't surprising considering the air now has a more complicated route of travel to the extractor via that baffle, but the difference in suction wasn't actually that noticeable. And next I want to test it out without the Thien baffle, so I removed it and got it all set up once again. And this gave me readings averaging around 12.3, which is a bit of an improvement on both the Dust Commander HD and the CTS with the Thien baffle fitted. I was also interested to measure the airflow at the source of my extractor before the Cyclone and the ducting, and the reading I got was around 14.7 meters per second. So here's a quick table showing everything that I tested. I'd have loved to have given some other measurements here like CFM, because I know our non-metric friends probably would have liked to see that, but when I started looking into the airflow calculations I got lost in a web of science that I didn't really understand, and I don't want to put out bad information on my channel. So perhaps someone in the comments section can explain the right way to calculate that. And by the way, the internal diameter of my ducting is about 65 millimeters. I found this 52 litre metal barrel online. I much prefer the metal barrels because then you don't have to worry too much about the risk of the container collapsing in on itself with suction from the vacuum, which is a common problem with the plastic barrels. And I think it'll be the perfect size for me, as it's big enough that I won't have to empty it too regularly, and small enough so that I can let it fill up and it won't be too heavy to manoeuvre around, and it doesn't take up too much space either. This was bought online, brand new, but when I took the lid off I found a problem. The rubber seal inside the lip of the lid had perished and had turned to a bit of a gunky mess, which was pretty annoying. I should be able to sort it out though. First I just need to remove the residue with some solvents and wire wool until it's nice and clean. And before I work on resealing it, I can get the holes cut and drilled. And I used a file just to smooth over the edges so that I can get the new CTS Cyclone fitted. Then I add a new bead of silicone to the lip, and I'm just trying to replicate the thickness of the old rubber seal as much as possible here. At this point I started moving things around to free up some space, and I'm going to take my compressor for a walk. I'm going to move this underneath the miter saw so that it's easier for me to access. And then I set up a laser level because I want to install a new shelf over here, so I screwed some battens to the wall. Remember this? My old workbench top. I'm going to make use of this as a new shelf, seeing as plywood is so expensive these days, and I don't like wasting money when I can make use of what I have already. I'm going to add a batten to the front of the shelf too, just to keep things rigid, as this shelf is going to be holding a significant amount of weight. Skipping forward in time a bit because some of the stuff I was doing wasn't particularly interesting, so let me show you the setup that I have now. As you can see, I've freed up a huge amount of space here underneath the shelf, which I didn't have before, where I can store my pack-out boxes from Milwaukee, which I've had for well over a year now, but I could never find a good home for them in the workshop because they take up quite a bit of space. So it's nice to finally have space for those, and I'll be using those whenever I go out and do jobs outside of the workshop. Because my dust extractor and Cyclone are sitting much higher up than they were before, I've also redirected all of the ducting in this area, and the duct runs are now simpler and shorter than they were before, which has improved the airflow even more now, which is nice. Unfortunately, I didn't have any black pipe, so I had to use grey, but no big deal. I've made a little drawer box thing just to lift up the extractor a bit to make hooking up the Cyclone a bit easier, and you can never have enough drawers in the workshop in my opinion, so this is going to be very handy. But then I decided that it'd be good to get the extractor even higher, so I built this razor block thing, and I've added some 4x2s cut out to the shape of the barrel on the extractor, and that's just to help hold the extractor firmly in place, because sometimes when I turn the extractor on, because the suction is so strong, this pipe kind of compresses and the body of the extractor kind of jolts, and I'm worried about it falling off. Let me show you what I mean. Obviously none of this looks pretty because it's just been made from scraps, but maybe I'll tidy it up someday with a coat of paint or something. If you're wondering whether I'll be using the Thien baffle or not, well, to be honest, I haven't really decided yet. At the moment it isn't fitted, and I'm going to wait a few weeks after some use to see what the separation is like in comparison to how it was with the Dust Commander HD. If I notice that significantly more fine dust is getting through to the extractor, at that point I'll try adding the baffle back in, which will reduce the airflow a bit, but not to a point where it will cause a problem. because the suction from this is more than adequate both with and without the baffle. As for whether I'd recommend this particular cyclone or not, well, that kind of depends on your requirements. You can get slightly cheaper plastic cyclones from places like China. I used one of those for my very first cyclone setup and it worked fine. But if you want something that's a little bit more durable and heavy duty, and with larger ports to increase your airflow, in a compact form that doesn't take up a lot of space, and with the option of adding a thin baffle for greater separation, then I think the CTS Cyclone offers really good value for money. Now just a quick update about my extractor. In a recent vlog video I explained that I came back from a few days away and opened up the workshop to find that this extractor was running. I think what may have happened is that somebody nearby pressed some kind of remote operating on the same frequency which triggered the extractor to turn on, and obviously that created a massive fire risk because this thing was running for at least several hours, potentially a few days. Unfortunately that wasn't the end of my issues, because I found out after that that one of the motors in my extractor had blown, so only one of the twin motors was working and suction was significantly reduced. I called up Pneumatic, who make this extractor, who I have to say were extremely good. They helped me to figure out exactly what motors I needed, and they suggested that I replaced both motors because the extractor is a few years old now. 2 new motors cost me just over £100, and I got a friend of mine who's an electrician to wire them up for me. Unfortunately though, when he wired them up, only one of the motors worked. So I got in touch with Pneumatic again, and they asked for some photos of the wiring and how it was all connected up. And when we sent those photos over, they said that I'd probably needed a new suppressor and a new PCB as well. So I ordered those parts. I think the cost was about another £60, and my electrician friend wired those in, and now it works fantastically. In fact, the suction on this now seems to be so much better than it was before the new parts were fitted. I don't know why that is. I don't know if adding new motors can create extra power, but all I can tell you is that it works better than it did before. So it probably cost me about £180 in repairs, but I'm so glad that I did it. And in my opinion, this machine is well worth the money. I also mentioned in that vlog video about the extractor being turned on without me turning it on, that I wanted to get some kind of electrical overriding switch to shut off all power to the workshop every time I leave. And I haven't done that yet, but what I have done is just set up everything on a smart plug. That was suggested by a few people in the comment section, so thanks for that. And now it's really easy for me just to shut off everything as I leave. And I can also run automatic routines at night just to make sure that everything is shut off. If any of you are using remote controls to trigger your extractors, I would highly urge you to look into some sort of solution to make sure that you don't experience the same thing as me. And it's not just me either. Peter Millard obviously experienced a similar thing. I'll link to his video. And yeah, just be conscious that things can very easily go very wrong. Please subscribe to the channel for more videos. If you'd like to help support the channel, plus get early access to my videos, exclusive content, free project plans and cut lists, and a name credit at the end of my videos, you'll find links to my Patreon and YouTube channel membership in the description box below. Thanks for watching.